Hi, wanted to talk to you about the concept of soulmates and divine life partner and divorce and relationships in general. Um, so it all kinds of falls into one big category of relationships. So let's see. What do we do in a relationship? Why are we in a relationship? What do we want from a relationship? Companionship is number one, right? That seems to be the common what just happened. That seems to be the main purpose why we don't want to be alone, so we end up searching for a person that we enjoy their company. But unfortunately, a lot of times we do it for the wrong reasons. Um, we we do it because we hear all these things in movies, you complete me, and it's 50-50 in a relationship, and my better half, and all these little things that honestly do nothing but cause a lot of dysfunctional ideas in relationships, I think. So, as you know, I've been happily divorced for 13 years. And I say happily divorced because very early on, when I would tell people I was divorced, they would be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'd be like, "No, no, no, it's actually great." That's why I started saying happily divorced, because it immediately sort of made them relax and smile because it was not that serious. Um, my divorce was the biggest blessing in my life, and I am, like I've said before, on really good terms with my ex and the second wife. Um, so I've been single on and off for 13 years, basically, and I've looked, reflected, really thought about what is it that I want in a life partner. And this is over many, 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 many conversations with so many girlfriends and male friends, and just talking about why, and doing a lot of reading as well. Like I've mentioned, when I'm interested in a subject, I research the hell out of it. So I read as many books as possible about it, and whether it's soulmates or whatever. So let's talk about that concept of soulmate. Seems to be a lot of misunderstanding. I've had a friend tell me, "Well, there's no such thing as soulmates." Sure, absolutely. Um, you know, Again, the intention here is not to convert or convince anyone to believe what I'm believing. That's absolutely not the intention. The intention is simply to share my understanding of some of these things, and hopefully they resonate with you, and that's it. So I believe that we have more than one soulmate. In fact, we have many soulmates. A soulmate is simply someone that um, you've done this before in a previous life. Now that goes with the assumption that there are past lives and previous lives, and we assume that there's a thing called reincarnation that we believe in, which I do believe in. Whether you believe it or not, irrelevant. Again, so a soulmate is just someone that I've done this before with. I've lived lives with them before, not necessarily romantic. A soulmate is someone that when I cross paths with them, there's a knowing, there's a fondness, there's a familiarity. But that doesn't mean that's always a positive. Well, usually it's a positive thing with the soulmate. Um, but someone that you've crossed paths with might also just be, you instantly, you see someone, you meet someone, and instantly you just don't like them. The energy is just foul. You sort of repel. And what that is to me is, we've crossed paths in the path and we didn't end well. We might be on the opposite sides of a war. We might be friends who fell apart. We might be brothers, sisters, whatever. But a soulmate is someone that, I just connect with, I just resonate with. There just seems to be this almost instant sort of bond, which then continues and grows. It's not it's different from infatuation, where you connect and you are into each other, but then you kind of fizzle out. That's not what a soulmate is. So over the years, I now am familiar and I'm aware of many of my soulmates. My mother is definitely one of my soulmates. I know I've done this before with her many times. My boys are my soulmates for sure. My sons are. I knew that about my firstborn ever since he was little. The younger one, I'm just figuring it out now. My best friend is one of my soulmates. It took me literally. We've been best friends for, gosh, 16 years now, on and off. And finally now, for the last 2 years, I've been like, yes, best friend, yes. And now in the last few months, it's really just been where I can, like, yes, she is a soulmate for sure, because it's just, the connection is just there. And then, of course, I meet different people who I just have this knowing, and I don't just go around telling people that because it kind of freaks them out. But I have this knowing that, yes, I've done this before with them. This connection is just too strong. But that does not necessarily mean, and that just because I'm connected to someone, well, in this case, they happen to be my mother, my girlfriend, and my sons, but there have been men that I've been friends with that just the connection is very strong. And but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to end up romantically involved with them. No, absolutely not. A soulmate is just somebody that your soul is familiar with. So yes, I am very good friends with them, but it might not necessarily be anything more than that, which is fine. A soulmate is going to push your buttons because they really know you. They show up in your life to help you better yourself, or be a mirror to you. Not always a fun thing when you when you're living life, and we tend to want to put blinders on and not have to deal with stuff. And a soulmate will kind of show up and push you for that. What I would love to have, is a divine spiritual partner. What does that mean? So, I've had a husband. Oh, my ex-husband is definitely one of my soulmates, and I believe that he agreed to be the asshole ex-husband in this lifetime, and he did a great job at it. So, yay! But he agreed to play that part for me so that I would go through this process of divorce, and have to pick up the pieces from that and be the person I am today. If I had not gone through everything through the divorce, I wouldn't be who I am. So thank you for playing the part of the jerk. Um, anyway, so then coming back to partnership, a spiritual partnership is different than just a marriage, or just a romantic relationship. Of course, there's romance there, but the idea is that it's a connection of the soul. It's a connection of two spiritual beings who are agreeing to travel the journey of life together, with the intention of allowing the other person to be the best version of themselves, encouraging them, supporting them, unconditionally accepting and loving them. It's very different than a wife or a husband. Sure, a husband and a wife can definitely have a spiritual partnership, but not necessarily. So, one of the things that we women, men, we all tend to do is we make lists of things, right? Requirements of what we want. So yeah, when I was younger, tall, handsome, fair, educated, well settled, blah blah blah. The list went on, and of course, over the years, my list has changed drastically. The physical attributes that used to be so important, even up to a few years ago, out the window, not important anymore. Having dated, have part two. So having dated, having met enough people, having had enough conversations with people, I realize now that for me, the most important thing in a person is not the looks. It's not what they look like. But more importantly, it's their spiritual awareness, the spiritual, how grounded are they? How aware are they? And then, of course, intellectual stimulation. I cannot be with someone that is not intelligent and humble at the same time. And that's important to me. And I had recently was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was looking at his list, and and this very beautiful young girl that he was with had six of the eight things, and the two things that she didn't have was intellectually stimulating and spiritually aware. And he said, "Well, I can make this work," and I kind of laughed because for me, first of all, a relationship is not some kind of challenge that you make it work. It really should flow together. But when I told him that for me, my two things were definitely, why is this so bright? My two things were definitely, you know, spiritual awareness and being grounded, and being intellectually stimulating. He kind of said, "Well, you're crazy." And I said, "Well, you're entitled to your opinion, but I just know that for me, I'd rather be alone than be with someone just for the sake of being with someone." And being married is not a big accomplishment, right? Anybody can get married and or anybody can be in a relationship. I mean, I work in the psychiatric unit of a hospital. Trust me, I've got plenty of homeless, psychotic patients who have boyfriends and girlfriends. Not a big accomplishment, um, because getting a boyfriend or girlfriend, sure, anyone can have. But then what else, right? Is that enough? Is that all you need? Um, the other thing that I would say is, many, many, many years ago, 8, 10 years ago, when I decided I wanted my list of things that I wanted in a relationship, I looked at that list and I said to myself, okay, great, this is a nice list, but let's be honest. How many of these things do I bring to the table? And the answer was, I didn't bring a lot of those things to the table. So then my next thing to myself was, well, how can I expect someone else to want to be with someone like me when I want that? I would be under assuming that they would want the same thing. So isn't it only fair that I work on myself first so that I can be the person that I want in my life? Think about that for a minute, right? We need to be the people, the kind of person that we want in our lives. You know, so work on that. You know, let's just. And over the years, I've done that. I've consciously, very consciously done that. And I think I'm 99% there. There's a, you know, of course, there's always room for improvement. But based on my old list, there's maybe like just a couple things that I'm still not there yet, but it's a work in progress. Um, the other thing I would like to say is, as I wanted to talk about. So, you know, I work with a lot of people that are going through separation, divorce, and it seems to be more difficult for men than women to be alone. So before the divorce is even finished, a lot of times it's when they're just separated, they immediately start getting on these dating websites and start looking to fill that void immediately. And I'm, you know, recently was talking to someone, and again, the man's not even divorced yet. Forget divorce; he's still living in the same house, separated with his wife and work ex-wife. Halfway, you know, hoping to work it out. The other part of him is, you know, of course, realizes that it's done, and but he's on a website and he is met someone, and but has not told her, you know, that he's going through a separation and divorce. And I had to tell him, listen, I understand. There's no judgment here at all. I understand that you don't want to be alone. And this is fine. You know, it kind of keeps you distracted. But just realize that this relationship that you're starting right now, first of all, you're not ready for. Second of all, it will not last because you have not been honest enough to tell her the real situation. And really, the healthy thing to do is to take time to heal completely from a relationship, from the breakup, whether it's a divorce or whether it's just a breakup. You know, the divorce or a breakup, excuse me, is like a death of a relationship. So a person literally goes through the seven stages of grief. You know, they're and not necessarily in any order. You've got, you know, anger, denial, resentment, you know, depression, plea bargaining, and you know, at some point you finally sort of accept that it is what it is, and you move on. And again, not necessarily in that order, and you can go back and forth between anger and plea bargaining and depression and resentment and denial. So the point is, you know, if you are getting out of a relationship, take time to just be you. And listen, it's the, you know, kettle calling the pot black or whatever the metaphor is. I'm horrible at metaphors. My friends will tell you that, but I still love using them. So, um, but it's, you know, because I'm guilty of doing a lot of these things that I know not to do, but for the purpose of, you know, speaking truth and giving solid, clear, what should be done sort of, you know, feedback, is take time to be you. Take time by yourself. Take time to cultivate yourself. Take time to process the end of a relationship. It's okay to be alone. Take time to cry. Take time to feel the sadness. Take time, you know, feel the emotions. You know, the other thing that we do is we tend to not want to feel our emotions, especially the negative ones, right? So if someone's crying, what do? We say, "Oh, stop crying, don't cry." You know, it's okay. Stop. I mean, even at funerals, I've had people say that, and to me, that just blows my mind. You know, because how can you not express your feelings? Where do you think those feelings go when you don't express them? Well, let me tell you. You know, there was a study done on tears many years ago, and they replicated the study. And basically, what the study was, they went to, you know, hospitals where babies were born. They went to weddings, they went to graduations, and they collected people's happy tears, little test tubes. And then they went to, like, you know, funerals and, you know, people experiencing major loss and catastrophic events, and they collected sad tears. And they took it back to the lab and they studied the chemical content of these tears. And what they found was that sad tears had a significant higher number of toxins in them versus the happy tears. So, what is the conclusion? Well, the conclusion is that when we cry, we're literally releasing the negative toxins from our body, and it's a very healthy thing to do. Because when you don't release the toxins and you don't allow yourself to cry, what do you think happens? Those toxins have to go somewhere. And they do. They go and they deposit themselves into the major organs, and that's where you get a lot of the diseases, you know, such as whatever, anything from just the common cold to, cancer, to diabetes, to high blood pressure, to depression, to anxiety, whatever. The mind body connection is very well described in a book called Molecules of Emotion, which I actually just started reading. And it's very scientifically explained. This woman has done some amazing research on, how it's the emotions have literally molecules, and there's different forms of it and how they transform and whatnot. The point is, it's okay to feel the emotions. It's actually a healthier thing. I have never known anyone who was not able to stop crying, and trust me, I've done my fair share of crying. When I tell you, so much crying. I mean, my heart just. But I also went through where I didn't cry for about 4 years. And it caught up to me, and it finally, when I did, I mean, it's like the floodgates opened up, and I cried and cried and cried for like 4 hours straight, with a few breaks in between. But that's easy. I've spent months, crying in the past, over whatever the case might be. And the divorce was hard, but there have been other things that, believe it or not, were harder, with a lot of grief and a lot of loss and a lot of pain. So the point is, you will survive. You will survive the tears, but you've got to feel the tears. You've got to work through that pain, and learn the lessons of that pain. Again, what is this experience here to teach me? That's the bottom line, right? So many things. So in conclusion, be healthy within yourselves. Let's be healthy. Let's make sure we are two complete, healthy, well-grounded human beings coming together to then share this journey of life together, instead of looking for the other person to complete us, which is a very unhealthy thing to do, and surely not the enlightened, conscious way to live. Thank you so much for listening again, and I will see you soon. God bless. Bye-bye.